Welcome back to the PatsCast. My name is Connor.
I'm Clay.
And I'm Sebastian.
And last episode, we focused on the QB situation in New England. We talked about Cam Newton. Clay and I both agreed that we think Cam Newton should come back to the New England Patriots, and we also covered some free agents and draft possibilities. In this episode, we're going to focus on positional needs in New England as well, primarily focusing on the wide receivers and the tight ends. So, Clay, starting off with you, what did you think of last season's receiving core?
Well, I thought that we had two, for what they were given, pretty darn elite step-up receivers in Jacoby Myers and Gunner. I think Gunner, this might be a hot take very quickly off the bat, but I think he could easily take up the mantle of punt returner, turning into a very, very good, solid wideout, like we saw with Tyreek Hill. Bird was there, not really when he needed, or when he needed to be there, he wasn't necessarily there. I think, as stated last time, Cam Newton needs a big target in terms of a running back or a tight end that's going to be able to carry us with Izzo or Asiasi or Keene. We really don't right now have a tight end that can take that role. I think that's something we can look at the draft or free agency for. But last year really is not going to cut it in terms of wide receivers. Even if we get Julian Edelman back for the rest of the season, he's not really going to be. I don't see him, all of a sudden going back to Super Bowl MVP form in his 12th season. So we need answers. And right now they're not there. We have the cap space for it. So I'm not 100% sure we could make it with these receivers that we have. Maybe Harry takes a step up next season, but I don't know. When Jacoby Myers is the number one receiver, i.e. an undrafted second year, something's a little off.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like the praise you gave towards Gunnar Olszewski, from being a punt returner to maybe being a reliable slot guy, maybe even number two receiver. I really see a lot of Julian Edelman in him, and I wish for great things to come. Seb, I'll ask you the same question. What did you think of last year's receiving core?
So right off the bat, I agree with Clay on quite a few different things. I think the gunner, the runner, interpretation is interesting. I do agree. I mean, you're not even counting Wes Welker, too. Great Patriots wide receiver who started off on that on the punt return kind of core, special teamer, really showed up. Now, I think we haven't seen enough from Gunner yet. The only real time we saw him flex out of that position was in I believe it had to be the Chargers game, where he caught that pass from Stidham that ultimately was a touchdown. It was a good job on him. But at the same time, that was a Chargers defense that was really not having a good day. So
Right.
It's tough to evaluate someone in that position so early. I also want to talk about the name you barely mentioned because I know we don't want to talk about it, but N'Keal Harry has been a very controversial figure, no question. I do like the direction they're heading for with him, though. They kind of understand it. This is both a negative and a positive. They're kind of treating him almost like a flexed out tight end in a way. They're not expecting him to make those crazy plays. They're kind of targeting him more on third downs. He's got a really big frame, so I can see him kind of adapting to fit that role. But once again, kind of disappointed from a stance of, you take a number one pick on a wide receiver, you kind of expect him to be a wide receiver,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%. I also say real quick, I do want to give you a shout out about Jacoby Myers. 100% love the guy.
I think Myers is really, I've been saying this a lot, Myers is the next step up for Edelman in terms of that person who played QB. They know the position. They made the switch. He's a kind of work hard guy, workhorse receiver, the kind of guy that the Patriots like. You saw him throw some really interesting, good plays, trick plays. But I don't know, that guy needs some firepower, some superstar to push him. I don't see anybody really pushing the wide receiver room right now in the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I will add, actually, I don't know if you saw this, but Jacoby Myers' pass touchdown in the Ravens game, that actually ended up being rated the number one Patriots play of the year. So if our best play of the year is a wide receiver throwing a touchdown, There's some issues involved, isn't there?
It wasn't even
Great
to
play,
Cam
though.
Newton too. It was to Rex
That's true.
Burkhead.
All right.
MVP Rex Burkhead. That's what I'm saying.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I love Jacoby Myers as well. He was the shining star of our offense this season, and he carried a lot of weight on his shoulders. And he really delivered, honestly, almost getting, 60 receptions, over 700 yards with only 14 games played. I really see him staying with the offense and, being a number 2 or number 3 guy in the system or the depth. So I like Jacoby Myers. Clay and I also talked about last episode. Um, you know, in a very depleted Carolina Panthers 2015 offense, Cam Newton really only had Greg Olsen to rely on, and even after Greg Olsen, kind of regressed. That's when Christian McCaffrey entered the mix, and I believe if Cam Newton does come back, we need a number 1 receiver. Maybe it is N'Keal Harry because at Arizona State he was a very ferocious jump ball receiver, and when he was drafted I kind of expected that, but there's still time. He still has a career ahead of him, so I still believe in N'Keal Harry.
I don't know. I think what's interesting about Harry is he was taken with the assumption that we were going to keep that Tom Brady offense. He's the kind of guy who, I hate to say it, would work really well in the Buccaneers right now. So if we could do a trade for Godwin or Evans or something, that'd be fantastic. But
That sounds like a miracle.
yeah, for real. The reason he's, I think, taking a back seat to someone like Jacoby Myers is Cam is looking for that athleticism, and N'Keal Harry's great with the jump ball, but Cam Newton is not great with the throwing the ball. That's not how he works. I think that's why he's looking for someone like a running back that he can screen pass to, or a tight end that he can screen pass to, so that he can kind of rack up these yards through switching up, not letting the defense know if he's going to run or not. Because in terms of Cam Newton, it's very, very clear when he's going to quarterback keep and get a couple yards, because he's honestly our most consistent running back right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have any receivers, it's basically just Cam pulling the football down the field forever and not being able to get any passes through. And with our running back core right now, I'm not necessarily sure if he has any help in that. Maybe that's why things ended up being the way that they did. Hopefully with those offensive line additions that we get from the people who opted out last season, and aren't cut because of cap space. Hopefully that helps Cam Newton out a little bit more, makes him feel more confident for the passing game. But I'm confident next season, whether it's Harry taking a step up or someone else taking a step up, because of our hopefully reinvigorated offensive line, we're going to see a little bit more of a pass-oriented offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I will push back. I do think our running back core this year was actually, at the best, it's been in a little while. I mean, Sonny Michel really stepped up in the latter half of the year. You saw that in the Jets game. You saw that later on. And, I mean, Damian Harris just kind of emerged out of nowhere as a third-round pick who ended up, in my opinion, I think he ended up number 3 on the Pro Football Focus rankings for running backs. He was very effective at what he did.
He was number 1 for 2 weeks.
I was going to say, yeah, unfortunately, if it wasn't for the injury, he would even be more productive, I'd argue. But he was very much a wrecking ball, as they always say, kind of running back. He can really plow through the line, and I feel like that's the kind of thing the Patriots need. It's kind of like grab those extra downs. It's really important right now.
Yeah,
but I do agree the running back core is a vital process to fixing this whole team.
Yeah, I'd argue that the Patriots haven't had a power back like Harris since LeGarrette Blount, and it's really nice to have Harris in there. I looked at the stats, and both Harris and Michelle finished the season with over 5 yards per carry. So,
hey, I mean, there you go. Look for positives, right? Look for positives.
Yeah. So going back to wide receivers, I think all 3 of us can agree that Jacoby Myers, Demir Bird, and Gunnar Olszewski were the shining stars of our offense, and special teams. But a guy that I like to, throw into the mix is Isaiah Zuber. He was a undrafted free agent signing. We only saw
A
him a
rookie.
little bit. Yeah, a rookie. We only saw him a little bit this season. But when we did, I saw, I, I, I liked it. I liked what I saw. And, you know, I think he's on the taller side. 6 feet. So, but, 23 years old, undrafted rookie. I'd like to see him more in the offense next season.
Yeah, no, I think he was one of those we kind of reached a point in this year where we wanted to experiment with anything, and we'll try it. We even who did we trade for against the Dolphins? Who did we? I can't blank on the name.
It was Isaiah Ford.
Isaiah Ford, thank you. But we ended up, abandoning him, and the Dolphins just picked him right up, unfortunately. So that was a little bit of a waste of a trade. But I think, he's one of those people we experimented with. I believe he was most successful when he was doing jet sweeps, though, to be honest.
Yep.
I thought his passing when he was involved in it, which was very minimal, seemed decent, but he's just another one of those prospects. It's tough to evaluate. He only had a couple downs in the season.
Right. Yeah.
I will say I was impressed when he showed up, and I was like, who on earth is this? But, I'll compare him to J.J. Taylor on the running back core, who kind of just showed up, real short running back. No one thought anything of him. And he did pretty good until he kind of was derailed middle of the season, but he came back towards the end when Damian Harris was out, I think. You're seeing a lot of younger guys that they experimented with this year, and honestly, that's a good thing. That's what we kind of need to do right now.
Yeah, I agree. Also, after Isaiah Ford left, Patriots picked up Dante Moncrief, who, during the Andrew Luck stage of the Indianapolis Colts franchise, he was the number 2 to T.Y. Hilton for a pretty long time, and I'm glad that we signed a veteran like him to join the offense. Maybe, I don't know if he sticks around, but hopefully, maybe on special teams. I know he played punt returner when Gunnar Olszewski wasn't around, but I like to see him stick around if the Patriots can re-sign him.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really good season in 2016. I don't see it being that difficult to return to form for him. But I think the real elephant in the room in terms of the Patriots receiving core is Julian Edelman. I was wondering what you guys thought in terms of someone who is, as I said earlier, entering into his 12th season, despite the fact that in 2019 he had a really fantastic season. I think it was over 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2019. Playoff run season. He was definitely the guy. Are we going to let him go? Is he going to stick around as a Patriot? Is he going to go to Tampa Bay? What do you guys think about Julian Edelman?
I'd love for him to stick around. As a Patriots fan, he's for about 5 years now, or football fan in general. He's always been there. He's always been reliable. That Super Bowl 51 catch is, going to be unforgettable in the years to come. So I'd love to see him back. He's a great leader. He could be a mentor for younger guys if the Patriots pick up any more younger guys. But yeah, there are talks about him getting traded to the Buccaneers to join Tom Brady. But even then, how long does Edelman have left in his career? He's taken so many hits. He's he's dealt with so many injuries. I don't think he has much more in him.
I'll argue against that. I think that the main thing you got to look at with Edelman is, undeniably so, our passing attack was significantly better when he was healthy this year. How many? He ended up playing around 4 games, I think, maybe 5.
He played 6.
6? Okay, 6 games. He finished with more receiving yards in those 6 than N'Keal Harry finished in 14. So it's undeniable that he makes a huge impact. Right. And I understand, yes, he's getting old. But one factor you got to think about is, with this injury, he did have a lot of downtime, a lot of time to improve on himself, both physically and mentally. Get ready. And I feel confident he'll come back, not only because I think, 1, he's a staple in the Patriots offense, but 2, I think genuinely he did make the team a significantly better team when he was healthy. And I think you can't deny that. And I think that having him under contract for another year just only helps us. And I agree also that locker room presence is huge. I think he's a great locker room guy.
Mhm.
So I think 100% keep him this year, and if you have to move him later on, well, so be it.
Mhm. Yeah, I never doubted Edelman's ability to be a playmaker. I just, as such a vital part of the Patriots offense, you only wish for him to have, the best health and all that. So, yeah, all three of us, I guess we can agree that Edelman is a vital part of the New England offense, and we want him to stick
Yeah.
around as much as he can. All
But
right.
unfortunately, he can't. I mean, maybe if things are okay, but I'm not sure he's ready to be that number one guy. I think we definitely still have room.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that as great as he was production wise, it could only help to have him in that slot role. I think having someone else who can, be that vertical threat can only help us.
Absolutely.
Mhm. Okay. So we all also agree that New England needs a number one physical, reliable wide receiver, and as Patriots fans, we're looking towards the off season to see who we can get, whether that be free agency or the draft. Um, Patriots are fourth in cap space, about 65 million after it's all said and done. Seb, who do you like the Patriots signing this off season?
Oh, let's see. Jeez, there are some good options, and I'm almost surprised by it because there's a lot of things that are going away now. Like there's certain receivers who originally were thought to be, available guys. They're not getting signed. I doubt at this point that Godwin doesn't get signed back. I think he's done great for the team. Now, if I had to pick someone who I think would be a great fit, who's currently going to be probably a free agent. Oof,
I mean,
I
it's a
don't want to say Juju. I think Juju fits the theme. I just don't know if there is a character issue there. I
right.
don't think the Steelers are going to let him walk. I think it's going to come down to Fuller, to be honest. I think the issue is that he's going to be one of the top guys to go after, but he fits that mold of a very physical guy, a very physical wide receiver. The kind of ones who can jump up and make plays, the kind that we need right now. And I mean, I see him as a good option if he's almost certainly available. We've seen what's going on over there. We've got craziness, but if we can get him, that'd be great.
Yeah, Fuller is an exceptional athlete. His speed is noticeable. He has great hands. He's on the taller side. I think he's like 6'2". I don't know. I'm just pulling numbers, but yeah, Will Fuller, 27 years old. He still has a little bit of a career ahead of him. But yeah, I'd love to see him re-signed by the Patriots. Me personally, I like the idea of Kenny Galday coming to New England. He is, in my opinion, the best jump ball receiver in the league, and I'd love to see someone like him make all these nice sideline catches and be that aggressive guy that New England hasn't had in a while. And like Fuller, he's only 27 and he still has a career ahead of him. So whether that be like a 3 or 4 year deal by the Patriots, I'd really like the Patriots to make a move on him.
Um, I think in a perfect world, if the management manages to be stupid enough, which we've seen it happen, I would really, really salivate if we were able to get Allen Robinson into our wide receiver room. I know he's going to be a free agent. I know that the Bears are going to throw a lot of money at him, but he's seen success with two teams now. He had a fantastic season last season. He had a fantastic season 5 years ago. He's been a staple in Jacksonville. He's been a staple in Chicago. And I think that he's the kind of guy that I think would come to New England and rock the house, be that almost like a Devontae Adams kind of consistent receiver, and be the quiet force behind really just propelling the offense to where it should be. Realistically, though, I think someone like, and I know this is a little bit out there, but someone like Tim Patrick, I think could really take a step up in the Patriots offense. He was a consistent guy for the Broncos, 6 touchdowns, around 750 yards, 742 yards. He's consistent in terms of targets and catching. And I think that he is someone who, a little obviously cheaper than Allen Robinson, and obviously someone that's going to be a little bit easier to snap up if the Broncos believe in Judy, which I think they do. He could definitely take precedence and bring the offense to a new role, but I think someone like Allen Robinson would really be that guy that Cam Newton's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So
Tim Patrick too. I want to throw this out there. You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds just like when they went out there and got Damiere Byrd. Not gonna lie, you know, he seems like a good guy. He's like that third wide out on the team. You know, he looks good. Take him in, and he's like, he kind of remains that third. But I think Tim Patrick. I think you're right. He could be the kind of guy to break out. I like the Allen Robinson pick too. I think that's great. I think if anyone can play good under Mitch Trubisky and Blake Bortles, I mean, he can play good under anyone. Let's get him over here.
And the Bears management is
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they franchise tag him, though. That's what I'm going to bet is what's going to happen. But in the event they don't, I'd love to get him.
Yep.
All right, so we just listed the top 3 guys on everybody's wide receiver free agency lists. You know, I'm looking through these names, and I kind of like Corey Davis. He's on the younger side. I don't know what's going to happen with him in Tennessee. You know, Tennessee just signed Derrick Henry to a 4-year deal. So Corey Davis is a name that pops out. Also, Zach Pascal, 27 on the Colts. Or not number 27, but he is 27 years old on the Colts. I don't know what his situation is going to be like because T.Y. Hilton is also a free agent. So maybe the Colts prefer someone like him over T.Y. Hilton just due to age and that. But Zach Pascal, we've seen a little bit of what he can do with the Colts, but you know, under such a strong wide receiver depth, you don't really see much of it. But Zach Pascal is a name that I like, and I see it as a realistic pick to the New England offense.
That's fair. I mean, Corey Davis, I personally, as much as A.J. Brown is just, he is that receiver for Tennessee. Corey Davis is a first-round pick from 2017. I think like 5th overall or something. I don't think he's going anywhere, honestly. He's been consistent for them. I think he might have had some injury stuff going on last season, so it wasn't that huge breakout season for him, but he still had 5 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards. He's definitely a guy to stick around for them, and I don't see him wanting to go anywhere or really going anywhere. I think the Titans have especially after signing Henry, I don't think that they're going to be throwing money at him, but I definitely think that he's going to want to stay. I'm sure he likes the culture there. I'm sure that he thinks and he believes that they're a winning team, because they're a winning team.
Mm-hmm.
They are. So I don't know. I don't know about Corey Davis. He would definitely help New England. He could definitely be a huge number 1 guy, more so than Tim Patrick or Bird, but I don't know. I don't think he's going to leave.
Yeah, we're very early in the free agency market, so you know we don't know what the intentions of some of these teams are. We don't know if Corey Davis is gonna stick with Tennessee. He probably will at the end of the day, but you know, just being excited Patriots fans, we're looking at every single option we can look at. So
no, he's a good choice. He's definitely a good choice. Someone to go after.
Yeah. All right. So. I think we're good with free agents. We all actually. You guys wanna look over some former Patriots that are impending free agents? I see a couple names right here. There's Philip Dorsett, Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown, Muhammad Sanu, and Cordell Patterson.
Well, geez, I see a name I see right off the bat right there, and I'm looking at Antonio Brown. Yeah. Geez, that was a fun time. I remember only a year ago, it felt like I remember looking up, Antonio Brown Patriots jersey. This is going to be great. Next thing you know, that was a bad idea.
He had a good week one. He had a good week one.
That's true. He had a great week one when you play the Dolphins, right? I mean, play the Dolphins, anything happens back then. We were 55-0 or something crazy. I like Antonio Brown as a receiver, as a His locker room culture, I don't know. I think what he did with the Steelers is still, affecting them in a bad way. I mean, I also don't think he's going to be available, to be honest. I think he's going to end up signing back with the Buccaneers, go for the repeat, and all that nonsense. And the other name I'm looking at here is definitely Sanu. And while I liked Sanu when we picked him up, it kind of felt like a cheap replacement almost for Antonio Brown last year, where it's like, we couldn't keep the guy we wanted. Well, let's try and get this guy who was great when we played him in the Super Bowl. Wasn't so great now. I think he's kind of jumped around. I think he was on the Lions at one point now. I think he was at the 49ers too. So
Yeah, he's been hopping around.
yeah, if that many teams are passing on him, I think we can pass on him too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Another guy to look at here is Cordell Patterson. While he was great for the Patriots when they had him, he did play the special teams role, and now that the Patriots have a guy like Gunner, I don't think that there's a need to bring back Patterson, honestly. Patterson is for a returner, he's a physical guy, 6'3", over 200 pounds. Like, he's almost built like a larger running back. But yeah, no, Patterson is a physical player. There's no doubt about that. But now that the role of punt and kick returner is already filled, or pretty much filled, I don't think there's a need to bring him back.
Yeah. I definitely agree with you in that sense. I think, also we're talking about tight ends, sort of. And a lot of those guys remind me of people talking about, Gronk's a free agent. Gronk really isn't a free agent. He's probably going to sign again with Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
The same goes
Go
for
for the
Antonio
repeat.
Brown. And a lot of those guys, what's interesting in terms of the whole former Patriot dynamic is that the Patriots like to grab guys who have value and have potential. And after they're out of the Patriots, I think that it's pretty darn clear that they've either not proven that they actually have that value or potential, or it's been used up. Belichick kind of sapped it out of them and threw them into the market back. So it's sort of like taking ABC gum, already been chewed gum, and putting it back in your mouth. And if we sign someone like a Cordell Patterson or especially a Sanu, I'm going to be a little bit concerned that we're really dipping into the reserves to try to find someone. I honestly, if we sign someone like that, if we spend some of our money on someone like that, unless there's a really good reason why, or there's just giant holes late in the off season, I'm going to be concerned about what our priorities are. If we're signing
great comparison. Great comparison to the gum there. I think you're 100% right. We've seen it time and time again. It affects us with the defense, affects us with the offense, affects us with the coaching staff. Only when I see, apparently now we got Matt Patricia coming back, but that's a whole other can of worms there.
Yeah, I think his position or his leadership role on the team is still undeclared, so we'll see.
I'm interested to see what that's going to be.
All right.
Waterboy.
I hope. So after looking at the free agents, or impending free agents, let's look at some draft possibilities for wide receiver. So, we all know that the Patriots have the number 15 pick in the draft, right in the middle. Kind of unlucky because, a quarterback is going to be taken in the top 6, but, there's still a lot of potential to draft a top wide receiver at 15. We've seen it before, where wide receivers are drafted in the middle of the first round, and they end up being superstars. So, Clay, there are a couple names on here that I'm looking at. There's Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, which I'm assuming is going to be a top 5 pick along with Devontae Smith. But there's Jalen Waddle, there's Rashad Bateman, a lot of high potential, high ceiling guys here. So, let me ask you, who do you want the Patriots to draft at 15 if one of these top guys is available?
So we're not going to, as much as I would love to say that we could trade up and get someone like Jamar Chase, that's not how we work. If we don't magically trade down from the first round, I think that there is, especially with a lot of speculation for quarterbacks being taken early in this draft, there is a whole lot of potential for someone like Devontae Smith to drop to us. I could definitely see this being like a Derrick Henry situation where, regardless of whether or not they got a Heisman or whether or not they had a fantastic, ridiculous breakout season, uh, prospects drop for one reason or another. And I think someone like Devontae Smith would be an invaluable rookie addition to the Patriots. I don't really see him actually being drafted. I more so see us taking maybe somebody in the second round, maybe someone like a Rashad Bateman or a Rondale Moore. And those top guys, as much as it's very flashy and uh, exciting to draft someone like that, it's usually like wide receivers, especially in the past couple of years, have been hit or miss. Those first round wide receivers have been hit or miss, especially in the rookie year. And something that I sort of agree with in terms of Belichick's style is he is a win now kind of guy, and taking a wide receiver relatively early in the first round is sort of a gamble. You don't know, you don't really know, especially the fact that Chase opted out. We don't know his performance. We don't know how he's going to mesh with the offense, and we don't know if he's going to, mesh with the culture. So even if we do end up getting someone like a Devontae Smith, which is like a dream situation for a lot of Patriots fans, and something that's kind of so much of a dream situation that it almost seems unlikely, impossible per se. I don't necessarily think I would be like, is this the best thing that we could be doing with our first round pick? Because I think we could take a quarterback, and we'll get to this later, but I think our best mode of action and our best praying that someone drops is Kyle Pitts. Mm-hmm. So I would more so be happy taking someone like a Rondale Moore or Rashad Bateman in the second round than going for one of these flashy receivers. But there's no doubt in my mind that this receiver class is especially good. And me personally, I love Devontae Smith. I would love to see him on the Patriots, but I don't know if that's possible.
So you're going with Devontae Smith. All right. I'm going to go with the other big Alabama name. I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle, who I think, in my opinion, has the potential to slide, just like you said. I think the Devontae Smith is a Heisman. There's a lot to pass up there. It's hard not to. I think John Waddle, because of the fact that he only played 5 full games this year, with a brief appearance also, in the College Bowl. But I think the main focus I'm looking at is the fact that he only played 5 games. He can really slip. And I think just look at Jalen Waddle. Oh, my God, he's been incredible. I mean, think about the fact that his speed is insane. A lot of people forget of what he did last year. I mean, let's look at the fact of with 33 receptions, he got 560 yards. And then 2020 got 28 receptions, 591 yards. This is a guy you can definitely come in and immediately play. So I think that if we could get him, I'd be more than happy because he's the kind of guy, a playmaker who can make a difference immediately, and it's exactly what we kind of need right now.
Mm-hmm. I like Jalen Waddle at 15. I prefer a guy like Pitts sliding down to 15 and drafting him, but you noted his speed, Seb, and it's comparable. I'm looking at Walter Football right now, and although there's not going to be a combine this year, they're projecting his 40 time to be 4.45. And honestly, I think Jalen Waddle has 4.3 abilities, maybe even high 4.2s for the 40 meter dash. But multiple team sources are comparing Waddle to Tyreek Hill, according to this website. So, I see the potential, I see the ceiling, and I like a guy like Jalen Waddle being drafted at 15. But like I said, if Pitts slides to 15 and he doesn't go to a team like, I don't know, let's say the Panthers or a guy who needs a tight end before us, or a team that needs a tight end before us, I'd prefer Pitts over Waddle. But if Waddle's available and Pitts isn't, I wouldn't mind taking Waddle at 15.
Well, if you want Pitts so bad, should we move on to tight ends now? What do you think there?
You think it's good, Clay?
Yeah, I mean, why not?
All right. So,
I mean, in terms of new people from the draft, everything is very up in the air.
Right.
It's hard to examine NFL. So I think we tight ends, absolutely.
Especially this year. Sorry to not transition, but especially this year where there's no combine, and scouting's going to be different. That's with every prospect this year, not just wide receivers. So, yeah. So let's
Speaking of other prospects,
yeah, let's go into the tight ends. Top free agents here on our list are Hunter Henry. We spoke about Gronk a little bit. There's Jonnu Smith. There's Robert Tanyan. There's Mo Alley Cox. And, yeah, those are the top 5 guys. So let's talk about Hunter Henry first. A guy who signed the franchise tag with the Chargers last season and, expected to be a free agent this year. We all know about his potential. He's a great run blocker. He's a great receiver. He's tall. He's on the younger side coming into the market. So I'd love the Patriots to sign someone like Hunter Henry, but there are gonna be a lot of teams hungry for someone like him. Teams in similar financial situations that need a position like that. But I personally, I'd love Hunter Henry to come to the Patriots.
Big on Hunter Henry. Okay. I like him. If we get Hunter Henry, that'd be great. I just don't see it being possible. I'll be honest. I think I'm going to switch down to Jonnu Smith, who if he's available, I think there's a decent chance the Patriots can get him. And I just love Jonnu Smith. I watched a bit of film of him this week, and oh my God. Like right away in my notes, I wrote down Yak God. He is so good at the yards after catch. Let me tell you, I didn't believe he leads tight ends, but compared to the average, he absolutely destroys it. What that basically says about him is not only can he get open in space, but he can pummel his way forward. He is going to make a play no matter how hard the other team tries to stop him. Another thing I noticed from him, he has a huge red zone production. He had a lot of TDs this year, which was a big step up from him compared to later years. And I think what's interesting about that is if you look at the Patriots, they ranked 24th in red zone production, which is kind of bad compared to where we usually are, which is like the top 5. So I think having him would definitely go towards fixing that issue, which is, like I said, big issue. The one thing I don't know about is he has decreased in targets recently, especially with the increase of Brown as well as Davis. They've come out as a really good tandem on that team. So Jonnu Smith, has had a little more trouble there. But at the same time, maybe that's a good thing because maybe then they look at their tight end position and say, well, we don't need a playmaker there. We have our playmakers. We need a better blocker. So then they maybe there's a greater chance he goes into free agency, which if so, like I said, grab him up. I'm all for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I was one of those guys who was really relying upon Jonnu Smith in fantasy last season, and especially we're talking about red zone. He was their finisher a lot of the time. The way that Taysom Hill would be brought on for no reason for those 1-yard touchdowns. It'd be a lot of 1-yard touchdown throw, even a couple, I think, 1 or 2 weird rushing-esque plays for Jonnu Smith. And what's interesting is when he was out, Fursker and Swaim were actually really able to carry the tight end position pretty damn well. So I think that Jonnu Smith is someone who, realistically, the Titans could let go into free agency for the next season, and I think he's someone that would make gigantic plays for the Patriots. I don't necessarily see him being that, big superstar tight end that I keep talking about, but he's a really consistent guy. In terms of other prospects, I think if the Patriots aren't able to get their superstar at the tight end position, I think someone like Jared Cook, even though he's an older guy, he's probably going to be able to take on that position of being a solid receiver. He was good with deep balls last season. He didn't have that great of a catch percentage, but when needed, he delivered. I think he got 7 touchdowns, another one of those guys who was solid in the red zone, solid with yards after the carry. He's just a good, consistent tight end, and looking at the guys that we have right now, I don't think Izzo's the answer. I don't think he's being targeted enough. I don't think tight ends are really. Honestly, I don't really think that they're a thing much at all in our offensive scheme right now, and I think that that's kind of a shame because tight ends have been consistently part of the Patriots' offensive scheme, and I'd love to see If it isn't a rookie or some undrafted free agent, uh, one of those guys like Jared Cook or Jonnu Smith coming and taking the mantle. I think that's entirely possible.
Mhm. Yeah, I love Jared Cook too. He's been bouncing around teams ever since he got drafted. He's played with the Titans, the Rams, the Packers, the Raiders, and now with the Saints. He's a very good plug-and-play tight end, and I like what you said about, tight ends being dynamic playmakers, because I feel like, tight ends are being those dynamic playmakers are kind of the norm now in the NFL, and if you're not treating a tight end the same way you're treating a receiver, then you're doing something wrong because, tight ends have changed since, 10 years ago when they were just primarily used for blocking. There were some exceptions like Gronk and Tony Gonzalez, but, tight ends were generally used as blockers. And, now you're seeing, some tight ends with, dual threat abilities. And Jared Cook has both of those. He's a pretty good blocker as well as a good receiver. He's tall. The thing is, he's on the older side, but, as a short-term option, I'd love the Patriots to sign him. On this list, too, we have Robert Tanyan, who's kind of been, before this season, he's kind of been in the back pocket of the Green Bay Packers roster. But, this season, he led all tight ends in touchdowns. He got 11 this season, with about 600 yards on top of that. He's a good tight end. So I don't see him going anywhere other than the Green Bay Packers. I think the Packers sign him to a 3-4 year deal. Keep him not as long as they can, but for a decent amount of time. Just because tight ends I'd say they're hard to replace. It's very hard to draft one. It's different from a wide receiver. There's less of them around. But I see the Packers holding on to Tanyan, even though the idea of Tanyan coming to New England is great and all. Other teams have needs and other teams have priorities. Or other teams have priority.
Yeah, so speaking of drafting a tight end, Seb, I heard that you're really getting excited about a tight end that isn't Kyle Pitts.
I know. It sounds bizarre. Everyone loves Kyle Pitts, and I love him too. I'm just being realistic. Him falling, it's a tough thing. I mean, I think the Panthers are one team right there that would just love to get someone like him. Now, I think what the Patriots have as a potential option that is exceptionally great is definitely Pat Freiermuth. I've watched film with him, which I'll be honest, there isn't a lot this year because he only played in 4 games. It's kind of unfortunate because I'll be honest, he looks great as a tight end prospect. And I know this is like huge praise, but I'm going to say it. He looks a lot like Gronk did coming out. I'm just going to say it. He looks a lot like Gronk. And one of those reasons I say is not only is he a great versatile threat, he's incredibly athletic. Most importantly, he's a great run blocker, which is the kind of thing you really don't see a lot of tight end prospects coming out with. We're fine now. It's kind of the thing that's to be coached into them. And so seeing someone who's really good at both of those, like as Connor was saying, that dual threat, I mean, it looks great. And if I have to add a little bit of extra positives here, he's also a local guy. Did not know this until today, but apparently he's from Newburyport, Mass. So, I mean, if you got a Massachusetts tight end right around the corner who's as insane as this is, I don't see how you don't pick him. I think the other part of the great is, he's definitely available. I don't think he's going until at least the second. I think with our, second round, 15th pick, I mean, that seems like a great way to grab him right there. I don't see any better option, to be honest, for the Patriots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I love Freiermuth. He plays for Penn State. Penn State is, other than Iowa, I think Penn State is second in colleges when it comes to producing great tight ends. Kyle Brady in the 90s was a great blocking tight end for, I think it was the Panthers or the Jaguars. I don't know. They had very similar team colors. But and then Mike Gesicki, who's been kind of the shining star for the Miami Dolphins offense. I see Freiermuth. I see the appeal. I like his frame, his blocking ability, his receiving ability. So I also agree that drafting him in the second round isn't a bad idea at all. Another guy on here that we haven't really focused on is Brevin Jordan. he's a projected third round pick, but other than he's below Pitts and Frymouth when it comes to tiers of tight ends or tiers of tight end prospects in the draft. Brevin Jordan, I haven't really seen much on him. He's kind of on the shorter side though, but I if the Patriots can get him in the fourth round or something, I wouldn't mind, just because he's been all right. I never, again, I didn't do my research on him, but he plays for Miami, so there's something to look at.
I was gonna say, I think that really says a lot about the state of the tight end market. Honestly, it's so hard to get a good tight end in the draft nowadays. When you see that, like, look at Cole Kmet, who came out last year. Especially his incredible talent. He was okay on the Bears. Not special,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got T.J. Hawkinson, who came out a couple of years ago. He really formed out to be a good tight end, but I mean, you just don't see that very often. It's usually like the random guys you pick up who suddenly become the stars.
Yeah.
I feel like when you see Kyle Pitts and Pat Frymouth in the same draft, like that invites me right there to just go tight end. I know the Patriots obviously went double tight end last year, which Dalton Keene and Devin Asiasi. But seeing as how that didn't work out great, I don't think it's out of the question for the Patriots to go tight end again in the draft. I think it's definitely a possibility, and like I said, I think they should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see them taking Freiermuth, considering all you said about him, Seb. That just makes sense as a Patriots pick. But at the end of the day, I think that the same way that even though Philadelphia, and I know this is a Patriots podcast, even though Philadelphia drafted a receiver in the first round last year, and he just didn't work out, or at least he didn't work out last season. And people are saying, oh, they're probably going to draft a receiver again this draft. They could. I think it could go either way for the Patriots, but I think that in terms of someone like Belichick, most likely, I don't think we're going to see him trying to draft positions that he's already drafted. I mean, maybe I could see picking Freiermuth, but at the end of the day, I personally think that he's going to go for the free. It's going to be more so dipping into the free agent market, which I'm not upset with. I think someone like Jonnu Smith, someone like Hunter Henry, could take on that role. And down the stretch in a couple of years, once these guys prove themselves, Pitts and Freiermuth, we could do a trade for someone like that. I mean, period. End of story. And hopefully that desperation is something that asserts itself come draft time, because drafting a good tight end is definitely better than signing a good tight end. I think it's one of those things that it's very difficult to predict. It's just something you're just going to have to watch and see come draft time.
I think we've kind of, danced around this little topic a little bit, but I think we do have to mention Kyle Pitts. I mean, what can be said that hasn't already been said a million times? Just incredible. Easily in the top 10 prospects in the draft. And it's rare to see a tight end, valued that high, but I think he's definitely one of, if not the most elite prospects that is to offer. I mean, just look at his year. 43 receptions for 770 yards and 12 touchdowns. For a college tight end, that's incredible. It's just, I don't see how any team who can just pass by him. I know if the Patriots have him as an option, I think it's an auto draft. I don't think it's a question. I just, of course, as we've already said, I just can't see him falling that low, because I think he's just too good.
Right.
And you know what? That's the end of the day.
Yeah, I honestly, I hate to say it, I see Carolina picking up someone like Pitts before us, because for the past few years now, Carolina has been stacking up their defense, and I think if once they get that inside linebacker to replace Luke Kuechly, they're pretty dangerous. So why not fill in that tight end position that hasn't been there in a while, and have such a dynamic offense with DJ Moore and stuff like that. But again, this is the Patriots podcast, PatsCast. But yeah, as a Patriots fan, I just hope Pitts slides. Like we said earlier, like Seb touched upon, tight ends is such a difficult position to to find. Either, you draft a guy in the first round, like a top 15 pick, that turns out to be a stud, or there's you get the Travis Kelce's and the George Kittles in the third round that look okay look okay, and you take a gamble, but the gamble works out, and then but I do agree with Clay and how he said that. I think it's better to sign a notable tight end who's had good reputation than draft a guy, because last season Patriots stacked up on tight ends and drafted Ossie and Dalton Keene, and every Patriots analyst post-draft said that both of those guys were reaches for where they were drafted. So it's just such a hard position to project on.
Yeah, and maybe one of those guys steps up too. But I think that if the Patriots are gonna reach in the first round, it could be Mac Jones, but more realistically, I think they're going to reach for Kyle Pitts. That's the only reach that I would ever see them doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important. I think the tight end is really the most important position to look at for next season, because it's become sort of like a quarterback where you're looking at one guy. There's not a lot of teams, aside from like the Vikings, that have 2 or 3 consistent tight ends. We need a guy. There's going to be a guy next season if we're winning next season.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that he could be one of those rookies that we drafted, but more realistically, he's either going to be Kyle Pitts, Pat Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, Hunter Henry, or maybe Jared Cook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Pitts is a generational talent. I haven't seen a tight end prospect as good as him since Eric Ebron, and Eric Ebron has turned out all right for where he's played, but Pitts has the speed, he has the height, he has the jump ball ability. But I also agree that it's Pitts sliding down to 15 is very unlikely, and I think the only way the Patriots can pick someone like him up in the draft is trading up to a team that potentially could also be hungry for a player like Pitts.
Or take Freiermuth.
I like the idea of Freiermuth coming to New England. He's a very dynamic player, like Seb talked about. So
you'll catch me in the Freiermuth jersey next year. Don't worry. Calling it now.
Oh yeah. Or we could actually use that kicker that we drafted last year. That'd be interesting.
Oh, Justin, whatever his name was. Ugh.
That says it all, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. We can't predict. We don't know.
Can't believe the Patriots missed out on Rodrigo Blankenship. That would have been something. But Nick Folk was good for what he was. So speaking of Nick Folk, for some odd reason, next episode we're gonna focus on Patriots impending free agents, guys like J.C. Jackson and David Andrews, and who we think the Patriots are going to re-sign. Who we think is best to re-sign out of these guys, and Nick Folk is on that list, like I said. So maybe he's the guy that we bring back. Maybe not. I don't know. And then also on top of that, we're going to cover the Stephon Gilmore / J.C. Jackson. Who's the number one guy? And if we all agree that J.C. Jackson is that number one guy, what do we do with Gilmore? Do we trade? Do we let him go? Do we re-sign him or even tag him for a 1-year deal? And so that's going to be next episode. I think for this episode, though, I think we're pretty much done. We covered everything. We covered the wide receivers and the tight ends and all that. So.
Lack thereof.
Yep. Only high hopes as Patriots fans. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
But so that's that. This is the PatsCast, and we'll see you next week.